someone had handed me some interviews that John McCain gave while he was a POW, which were published in Hanoi and Havana and intercepted by American intelligence, in which McCain was very friendly with the enemy and shared with them a lot of military information. Now, I was just curious to see if that was consistent with what he claimed in his numerous autobiographies. Faith in Our Fathers, Why Courage Matters, not to mention a U.S. News and World Report, that a first-person account that he wrote May 14th, 1973, 61 days after he was released from captivity. And I was curious to see if there was a consistency with among those autobiographies, and if they were consistent with these 4 obscure interviews that I obtained. And they were not consistent. His 3 autobiographies were consistent, but in which he claimed he hadn't shared any military information. Well, what I then discovered is that John McCain refuses to release his POW records, just like he wouldn't release the Abramoff records. And I couldn't put this in the book, but Abramoff had a Russian client who spoke Vietnamese and claims to have seen some of the Vietnamese daily transcripts written by McCain's captors, and some very unfortunate things are said about McCain. I didn't want to put them in the book, and I'm not going to tell you what they are now because I couldn't source them, I couldn't document them. But they're not nice. And if they're true, then John McCain would not only have to resign as Republican nominee, or if they come out after he becomes president-elect, he would have to resign as president-elect. He would have to resign as senator from Arizona. I'm hoping that these allegations are not true, but I don't know, and I want to know, and I think the American public has a right to know before we cast our ballot. So if there's something dark in those records, and since the Russians ran the Hanoi Hilton, we know that the Soviets, now the Russians, have those records. Therefore, Vladimir Putin has those records. And they could be used, if there's something dark in those records, to blackmail McCain should he become president. I hope there's nothing bad in them, but I would like to be sure that there's nothing bad in them. And I call upon McCain to release his public records, not to mention his medical records, which he also refuses to release. So in investigating Abramoff and coming across McCain's refusal to release the documents, which would allow independent investigators like me to confirm his conclusions, the suppression of documents seems to be a pattern in McCain, and it makes me very nervous. I want to be fully informed before I cast my ballot, and John McCain is not allowing me to be.